All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to WiSE, Women in Science and Engineering. My name is Dr. Ashley Spring, and my colleague, Dr. Mary Roslanowski, and you can't see anything on the screen. But now you can. Women in Science and Engineering WiSE is a program at BCC. It's committed to the recruitment, retention, and advancement of underrepresented groups pursuing careers in science and engineering. It is open to all students. Women in Science and Engineering group here at BCC has seminars with guest experts like our expert today, Ms. Wells, workshops on careers, resume building and graduate schools, networking for future schools and employment, local excursions, career mentoring, undergraduate research. Today we have Deanna Wells, an engineer with the U.S. Air Force. Our next seminar is Thursday, October 18th, 3 o'clock, same place, same time. Tim Logan, a software engineer with Harris, to tell you about computer science. And Thursday, November 15th, is Virginia Barker, manager of natural resources of Brevard County Natural Resources. Please contact either myself or Dr. Roslanowski with any questions, ideas, needs that you would like to see the Women in Science and Engineering program here at BCC build into and help you. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest, Ms. Deanna Wells, and she will be telling you more about engineering.
Okay. As you can see, I'm Dee Wells, short for Deanna. I prefer to go by Dee, so make sure you get that right. I was invited here to discuss and talk to you about my experiences in engineering and hopefully give you a little incentive to become a scientist or an engineer. I am used to the Air Force style of giving briefings. How do you get to the next one? There we go. So I have an outline for you of what I'm going to talk about. Basically, I'll start off with who I am, general descriptions and what makes me up, what I did then before I am to here, what I do now. And that's all the fun part and good and exciting things. But I do want to pass on some lessons learned as I've gone through my career, and hopefully that you guys can take advantage of. Who I am. First off, I am an American. I hold that very dear to myself. I have served 20 years in the Air Force. I am still serving this country in the form of the Air Force Government Civil Service. My father-in-law migrated over here, emigrated from Scotland for a better life. I truly believe this country can provide that to any and all that want to work for it. Was born in Colorado, grew up in Virginia, and settled on the East Coast. I lived in 13 states before I was the age of 13. So it was an exciting life. My dad was an engineer without a degree that worked for AT&T, so he was sent across the country to work many different projects and learned a lot from that and how to be an engineer. Graduated with a double E from the University of Virginia. I quite enjoyed my time there. And then graduated with a master's in engineering management from Western New England College in Massachusetts. Finished that master's degree while I was a single mom with 2 semi-small children and also active duty at the time. So it was a rather ambitious thing to do, but finished it. Did retire from the Air Force with 20 years, 5 months, 2 days, and quite enjoyed my time with them. I am married to a wonderful husband. Not sure exactly what I'd do without him. He's 16 years tomorrow. Yay. I'm the mother of 4 children. My oldest child is getting her master's degree in history. Second oldest just got his master's in mechanical engineering from UF. My next one is a freshman in high school who's got a football game tonight, so I'm trying to make sure I get out of here on time so I can go see that. And then my youngest is in 6th grade. She's also a gifted child, thinks well outside the box. It's been very interesting trying to teach and learn with her. So again, I'm a government civilian. Joined that in 2004, so I've been there for 8 years now. And I love Disney. So quite enjoyed when I got assigned down to Patrick as my last tour. As my husband would tell you, I actually, when I left the Air Force military service and came into civil service, I basically took the uniform off, put on civilian clothes, and went back to my desk. But it was good. So what I did then, I grew up loving math. Again, my dad was an engineer, loved to do the math stuff. He usually brought work home with him. So got to understand all that and really learned from it. First year at the University of Virginia, I joined a society called Angel Flight. It was a community service type organization. And the Air Force actually approached me in my first year and said, hey, you're a woman engineer. Would you like a scholarship? I said, sure, I'll take a scholarship. So that started me off on my Air Force career, and never regretted doing any of that. It's wonderful. So at the University of Virginia, took many courses, I'm sure all you all are doing. Hated thermodynamics. So hated it so much, I decided I'm going to take a second course in it. So if you do really come across a course that is difficult for you, it's very interesting to go beyond that first course because you learn so much more than you did on that first one. So that's something to remember. Love Diffie Qs. I know a lot of people hate it, but I quite enjoyed it. While trying to prepare for this, I went back to my yearbook and started flipping through it. And it's like, oh, I remember that person. And then I started counting the number of women engineers that graduated with a double E. There were 4 of us in the entire class of 300. So it was quite interesting. I'm coming up on my anniversary of graduating from there. So hopefully things are changing and have changed with more women in the engineering field. Did not know any of those 3 others personally. Didn't seem to bother me. I never had an issue with being a woman engineer. The only time I would come across problems really was in the military, with the Navy of all groups, but I'll go into more details on that in a little bit. And then I started work after graduating. Air Force career. You may not fully understand the Air Force versus the Army versus the Navy. Anytime it says fort, that's an Army base. I'm Air Force. So 4 out of my 6 places were at Army bases. And it was very interesting going through a career that way. The first place I went to was Fort Meade, Maryland. Worked with the National Security Agency. Since my dad was an engineer and uncle and all this, did have a lot of clearance capability, I guess. So that's the first place they put me. Worked on a program that was called TGIS, and it wasn't, thank goodness, it's Friday. It started off being called the Transportable Ground Intercept Facility. It was supposed to be a box, probably about 4 foot by 4 foot by 4 foot, that could be dropped off a helicopter and used for intercepting signals. Well, the T started not to be called transportable, it was called tactical, because it turned out to be the size of a single wide trailer. that wasn't going off of a helicopter. So it was interesting going through the requirements and the engineering aspects of those and seeing how things just expand for their capability and what they wanted. One of the neat things I got to do while working that program, since it was transportable, got to go to one of the sites that it was actually put at. And to get there, we had to ride a helicopter. I had never been on a helicopter. I'd been in the service for 2 years. Like, okay, we'll go do that. So got on the helicopter and like, oh, that seems kind of odd. There's 2 people on either side with guns pointing out the doors. Interesting. So we go out to the location and do our stuff, fix the equipment, take measurements, and come on back through the helicopter onto where we came in from. And the guys land. I go, man, that was a much better day. I'm going, okay, why was it much better day? Well, yesterday we were shot at. So it's like, well, thank you. It was told me after I got off the helicopter and was back on the ground. So got to do some neat stuff while stationed there. Got to work with a guy named Tuna. Good name. So after Fort Meade, I was then stationed off to Fort Monmouth in New Jersey. Worked the Joint Tactical Communications Agency. The program up there that I did was WiSE, the Joint Interoperability Evaluation System. Basically, it was a test bed where all the services could come in and test their communications to ensure that they could talk to each other, that their protocols were correct, they had the right signals and all that good stuff. First time I'd worked on a program that doubled its budget. Again, that requirements creep that when you get into program management, you'll hear about. Wanting more and more, and the engineers just putting more and more stuff into it. And so it's something, when you do become an engineer, you need to be able to hold those requirements and finish a project to the end and not keep updating and refining it until it's not useful for the people at the time. It needs to get out there to the warfighters that are there. An interesting thing I did at Fort Monmouth was the Marine birthday. Every year the Marines celebrate a birthday. It's a big thing for the Marines. Learned a lot about that too. All the services have their own special traditions that they follow. In the Marines, it's their birthday. They have a big cake cutting ceremony. They take the oldest and the youngest military person, and they're the ones that get to cut the cake. Well, at the time when I was at Fort Monmouth, I had been in the service for 4 years, so about 26 years old. It's like, I shouldn't have to worry about that. No, I was actually the youngest person on the base after being in the service for 4. Like, wow. So I got to cut the Marine birthday cake. That was cool. Very interesting. Then I went to Hanscom Air Force Base. First Air Force Base, yay, in Massachusetts. Saw plenty of snow, 6 feet at one time. It was good. Florida's very nice. It was also the first place that was the Air Force Base. However, its planes were on pedestals. They actually had no flying airplanes out of that base. While there, I got to work on JTID, the Joint Tactical Information Distribution System. It is a joint radio that is put on many different platforms, the E-3 Hawkeye, the Joint Stars, the naval ships, the Army carry them in backpacks, on their, those big truck things, and Air Force, I don't think Army. But I got to go out and test those. So after the contractor built them, we tested the requirements within their facility, made sure it was all passed. We got to go do integration testing. And so I got to spend a week out on the USS Arkansas. It's a naval ship, cruiser, has about 400 people on it. 2 were women, me and 1 other. That was fun too. At the time, this is where the Navy story comes in. They had just done Tailhook, had just come off of that, where they were being investigated for sexual harassment of their other Navy personnel. And so for an entire week, the only time any of the guys would talk to me if I asked them a direct question. There was no good morning, no hi, no nothing. No, I had to ask specifically any questions I needed to know. As soon as we got on port, back in from the ship and the testing that we did, no problem. They talked forever, but so it was an interesting time, trying to integrate this system and nobody's really willing to talk to you. So seeing how they operated the system in using it with the other aircraft and being able to communicate really showed how an engineering project can be of use. Testing went well. It was good. So to Robins Air Force Base in Georgia. Did Joint Stars. The plane's still being used now for surveillance. And what I got to do there as part of the engineering was develop and implement the software support facility for Joint Stars. Now, I'm an electrical engineer trying to maintain software. The two don't necessarily go together, okay? And it was interesting learning that aspect of it. I figured an engineer, they can handle anything. It's software, no different. Well, the other female software engineer, and I didn't agree on that. So, software is different. It's something I just didn't realize as an engineer, that there are differences in the engineering, and you really can't take what you learn and the processes you've learned and associate them with a different type. It was weird, but that's okay. It was fun there too. Then I went to Fort Monroe in Virginia. It is the oldest Army base, and it is very old. I think they have now finally closed it and made it just a national attraction or visiting type place to go to. They no longer actually have active duty folks there. But there, I was on JSON, all these joint programs. The JSONs is a joint modeling and simulation program. It was used by the Joint Warfighting Center. And basically, we got to develop that simulation system to emulate and use for training the commanders, the joint warfighters, the generals, on how to react with their troops. How do you use the technology? How do you use the airplane information that's coming down into the ground forces? How do you interact with CNN when they come knocking on the door? This was all done at the Joint Warfighting Center. And it was very interesting to see these generals just sweating. It was all make-believe, but they were sweating when they'd have to go see CNN and like, hey, we've already reported on such and such a mission and this. So we had to build the system to emulate all of that. How a ground fighter was going to be interacting, what intelligence was being brought into the battle that could be used. So it was a very interesting program, and got to do a lot of good stuff with that. Then finally, I got stationed at Patrick. Now, for all of these places, when you're in the military, you get to try to choose your base. I never chose any of the bases I went to. It was not even my third choice now. But I was very lucky. What was given to me was very good for my career, very good for my learning and growing as an engineer. But at Patrick, kind of diverted a little bit from the engineering side and the management of the engineering and became a resource advisor. I was the executive assistant to the director for advanced technologies. So basically, I had to build the programs that would, the plans for the programs that would eventually be done by the engineers. making sure that costs for training, for maintenance, for operations, all of those were in a single plan that could be briefed up to Congress and get approved and get funding for. So it's a different aspect of the engineering, but I used the engineering in doing it to make sure that I did cover everything that should be done with that program, from testing, integration type testing, how much development, is there going to be redevelopment, additional requirements being put in there. So the engineering, yes, I didn't use it directly, didn't put circuits together. It still helped me in the job that I did with the resource advisor. And then I retired. Got a nice shadow box that you're more than welcome to look at after the briefing, if you like. But now I work for AFTAC, the Air Force Technical Application Center over at Patrick Air Force Base. And what they do is detect nuclear explosions. We do that with a network of sensors that we call the WiSE, which is the U.S. Atomic Energy Detection System. And it consists of a worldwide network of technologies deployed to detect, identify, and locate a nuclear explosion underground, underwater, in the atmosphere, and then in space. To do that, we do have the different areas that we cover: subsurface, nuclear materials, atmosphere, and space. The area that I work in specifically is subsurface. To do subsurface, we use seismometers, and we place these around the world to support our detection mission. We have trained analysts that actually can read those wiggles on the left, which, believe it or not, it says there's an underground explosion that has happened. Reading those waves, those squiggles as we call them. And it can tell exactly where that event has occurred, how big that event is, and again, where the location is. So some of the equipment that we use to perform that mission. Sorry, the pictures didn't come up too well, at least from I can see it this way. We have, not supposed to leave here. We have seismometers, and we have wellheads that actually go down boreholes. These boreholes are 200 feet down into the ground. They have to be perfectly straight where we put the seismometer down, so there is a good connection between it and the ground. So we can read those waves that come across from the explosions. The other power, we take care of all of our power where we go in the different sites, take care of all the communications that we have with mil-band radios and things called free waves, 2.5 gigahertz range. We do all of that within my area. It's pretty cool. Like I said, we do get to go all around the world. And these are some pictures of some of the places that we are at. The upper left is South America. The one on the far right is Banda, Antarctica. So we are in all 7 continents in the world. The center picture is Chiang Mai, Thailand. Sorry, I'm taking a drink. That's one of my favorite places to go. It's very neat, very, very cool going out there. Bottom left is Mongolia. We can find water in the desert. You drill 200 feet, we can find artesian wells in the desert there, which is not good for our seismometers, but it's very good for the folks there, and in South Africa. So it's very varied on where we go. My job there, I'm in charge of 3 other folks, 2 enlisted guys and 1 other Air Force civilian, and we take care of configuration management of the system. We do everything from the process control, from the start time the engineers first deciding when to use the part, all the way till it gets out to the field, and how it's going to be maintained, how it will be disposed of once completed. We use a lean continuous process improvement, which is something I would recommend you guys learn about. It is an outstanding way to make sure that you are following a process, for one, and making it as lean and effective as it can be. And it's a continuous improvement type thing. I also do the quality analysis of the tracking of the assets and the items, making sure that we know where all of our equipment is throughout the world, and which is always an interesting task to do, because we do have folks out there that they get the equipment and they want to keep the equipment. Doesn't matter if it's broke, they're going to keep it, they'll work on it themselves. And it's like, no, bring it back, we'll send you a new one. But it's hard for them to understand that, yes, we're going to do that exchange, and we're going to maintain and keep that system up. We do reporting to the CTBTO, which is the Test Ban Treaty Organization, and the IDC, the International Data Center, which is where all of our data does go to, as well as our own system. Something of note, again, I tried to do some counts on how many women are there out there in my little organization. We're about 10%. I don't think that's very good as I look at it, but okay, that's where we are. In the engineering division, which is where I'm at, there's 3 of us. One major, myself, and another female. She does the data analyst. She's checking those squiggles to make sure that they are coming in good. 10% of the research division, geophysicists, are women. We have one PhD, and she does go out to Romania, to Kazakhstan, to Mongolia, and talk to their researchers and discuss the newest techniques in reading those squiggles. She's outstanding. She's amazing to us. And then 40% of our acquisition and plan personnel are women. Again, having that engineering experience and training, it helps in that acquisition and the planning. You can make sure that contractors aren't pulling your leg or trying to get something over on you when doing these projects. So it's been very good. And part of my travels, I got to get little mementos. I was presented a chocolate bar from Mongolia. Never eaten it. I'm not sure I want to. Have some pictures from Iceland, a talisman to ward off the evil eye from Turkey, a little doll from Kazakhstan, koala from Australia, flag from South Africa, my elephant from Thailand, and a straw ornament from Argentina. So it's very neat to go out to these countries and talk to the other engineers. I'm not looking at the picture. Talk to these engineers and get their experiences too from their own countries and what they've learned. The things I definitely want you guys to take away, and so to help you as you move on, if you're engineering or not engineering, just things that I've learned, sometimes a little late. First thing is always have a goal and make sure your goals are written down. And people say that all the time. I never did it until I got to Patrick. I probably could have gotten a lot further in my Air Force career if I had done that. I don't know if I would wanted to, but I could have. But make sure you have them as your personal and professional. You need to have the personal goals as well, not just I'm going to be the best engineer. Make it very specific. You want to be somewhere in a certain amount of time so you can work towards that and have that goal in mind. Another aspect learned kind of late too is the team aspect of things. Family is very important to me. For a while there, I did put my service and my work ahead of the family. Almost lost 2 of my kids for that when I went through a divorce, but was able to recover and And my kids are really very important to me, much more important than work is at this point. Rely on your coworkers. They're there. They're going through the same things you are. Lean on each other, learn from each other, help out each other. We have a thing in the Air Force called an Air Force wingman. We take that very seriously in making sure everybody is going to move forward, that they take care of themselves, they take care of each other. The community, your church, your social outside, that's very important too. So keep that in mind when you're moving forward and going through your life, that you look at the team aspect of it. And one thing I've always said, if it ain't fun, find something else. Okay? I enjoyed my 20 years. I could have done things differently, gotten further in the Air Force than where I retired at, but I enjoyed it, and I would not change anything for that. But if you're not having fun, relook at your goals, see what's going on. Maybe it's your team, so look at that aspect of it. So, and I don't have much else to say. So I will open it up for any questions that you have.
I have a question, Dee.
Yes, because I speak fast and I go through my brief very quickly.
What are the benefits, so if a student wants to go into engineering, and whether it's electrical engineering or civil engineering, another aspect of engineering, what are the benefits and what are the advantages and disadvantages of being an engineer in the military versus being an engineer in a private sector not connected to the military or not directly to the military?
When I first joined or started work in the Air Force, I actually got to write code. That's very unusual when you are in the military. You do not get that opportunity to do a lot of hands-on engineering with the services. You're doing mostly management. You're doing oversight of contractors or other groups that are doing engineering. So that is, for me, I enjoyed more of the management side, being able to look at somebody else's design and make sure that it was good, it was sound, met all those principles and things, versus actually hands-on trying to build that design. So, and you do get more of the hands-on outside of the military. So if you actually wanted to solder and design and build things, civil engine, computers, whatever, the private sector is the way to go with that. There are a few positions in the Air Force that do actual hands-on, but those are limited. So, yeah. Somebody else has to have a question. Yeah. Yep. On A1A, yep, Anthony Nelson's old building for my Dream of Jeannie, if anybody remembers that from so long ago. Yeah, that is the building. We are getting a new building out there. It should be done in 2014, I believe, so we'll be off the new one.
You know how the Navy has like a new program, how you score it, how you take 9 on the as you go to new program. Is that almost kind of how you do it?
I was an officer. We did not have that then. Basically, as I stated, I was in the engineering program already, and they said, "Hey, would you like the scholarship?" So they were already, since I was already getting a degree, that I didn't go through any of the testing thing. For our group, we have technicians, Air Force technicians, and they do go through a similar process. They score very high on their ASVAB. They are top 10% of their enlisted group. That's how they get into the program, into what we do. They actually go out to these sites and maintain them. They'll install them, get them back up and operational. And yes, they are the top to get into that area. Mm-hmm.
How does like your schooling match up with the stuff that you're doing with your education? Did you learn all of the stuff that you're currently working on now and all stuff?
I couldn't read a squiggle. I just can't do that. Yes, there is training available. We have Defense Acquisition University. There is Air Force Institute of Technology, all different classes and courses that you can take. And they pay for it. The Air Force will pay for it. So you don't have to know everything once you get in immediately. There is the opportunity to learn, the opportunity to grow, expand, and do that. Mm-hmm.
How much of what you learned in college, as when you got your degree, have you actually used in the field?
For me, absolutely nothing. Okay, sorry. There are many that do use it. What I really took from my degree was the ability to think logically, be able to do the math equations, be able to go through problems and get to their solutions, the understanding of, the physics and that stuff, to actually use differential equations or anything like that. And no. For me, no. Not in the Air Force. I would imagine that the contractors that I oversaw, that I managed, absolutely did use that. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Can you show me something, the slides on the basis of the equipment in all different countries?
Mm-hmm.
How does that work? Does your particular group, do they actually put the rubber in the ground? So you're there from the beginning, and then somebody there maintaining it, or you maintain it on the computer over here, or how does that work?
The systems are designed here, and we usually use commercial off-the-shelf equipment from places like Geotech and Geralt, and we'll use free-wave radios and solar power systems that are out and available on the commercial market, and integrate those together into a system. We take care of the drawings, we take care of purchasing of the equipment, transporting that equipment overseas, and then installing it. Depending on where we are going and the level of expertise that field has, and the agreements that we've made with the countries, depends on how much interaction that they provide, how much support they provide. We have a site in Romania that the technicians there are extremely good. They're great. We just send them the equipment, they go install it, they operate it. The data is sent both to their data center and it's sent back to us in our data center through the long-haul communication satellite normally is done. So it depends on the country. We have another site, 3 sites in South America, 3 in Africa. Those technicians really take care of those sites. And we have other locations. Korea, we're just getting into handing over our site to them. We originally maintained it, we operated it. They were there just as to look at the data, was the only thing they did. They are now getting into the maintaining that equipment and doing the installation so that they can take care of it themselves at this point. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And how when we were in other countries, here in the desert, and you were able to find water underground.
Yeah, we weren't looking for it. No, what we look for is a solid rock down there so that we can get the connectivity with the earth to be able to get the seismic signals up through the sensor. So where the geophysicists had figured the best place to go, we just happened to hit the water.
given it to the.
Yeah, yeah. That borehole was left to them, and we drilled another one and kept drilling until we could find some without water in it. Mhm.
The seismographic the experience I have with them is through the earthquake.
Mhm.
And I don't have any nuclear background, but I have a little bit of earthquake background. So it sounds like these are the exact same seismographs. How do you detect if
It's magic for me.
one is testing nuclear weapons versus earthquakes? So then the earthquake range on the Richter scale from 0 to 14. And I can imagine, wherever the epicenter of the earthquake is, would leave a very similar pattern on the seismograph to a nuclear explosion, correct?
It does leave patterns, yes. How similar they are, I'm not very good at reading seismoacoustic graphs. But the geophysicists and the research side, they can tell you exactly where it came from, what the magnitude was, if it was an explosion, if it was man-made, if it was caused by thunder, whatever. They're very good at that.
So can you tell us where our biggest nuclear threat is right now?
No, I'm sorry, I can't tell you that.
Any
Yeah.
other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Okay.
If you do have any other further questions for Jean, her email address is on our website, which is www.brvardcc.edu/WISE, WISE. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
If you need proof of attendance, I have the